and the madness only continued. We finally have our 2023 NFL playoff bracket, and in today's video, I want to give my initial thoughts about each game, some of the things I'm looking forward to, and some of the things I will be looking at. Is it health? Is it schematical things that I'm looking at? Big time matchups between these teams, but we talked about some of these playoff scenarios and some of these implications as we headed into NFL Week 18, and I think it was nothing short of amazing. What I'm seeing right now, we're about to list off these games. This is a slate of games, and I want to watch every single one. I'm going to be keyed in, and we're going to start off with some of the games we have on Saturday, January 13th. The Cleveland Browns go into the Houston Texans Stadium. Now, the Houston Texans won the AFC South because the Jacksonville Jaguars lost that football game, and they were losing out. So the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't in the playoffs, but shout out to the Texans for actually winning the South, and we're going to drop a video later on detailing just the Texans. But talking about this matchup right here, I think there's a couple of things that I want to point to and that I want to look at. We know how good CJ Stroud is, and I think when we saw the matchup between the Texans and the Browns in the regular season, there was no CJ Stroud. So now we're talking about a rematch where we actually get CJ Stroud against this stifling Browns defense. Now, we look across the board for the Cleveland Browns. They're first in a lot of major statistical categories defensively. Martin Emerson Jr., I think he was a Pro Bowl snub. Denzel Ward. We talk about Grant Delpit going to be back healthy. Looking at the front seven, you guys are Darius on one side, Myles Garrett on one side. My question is going to be, can CJ Stroud, and for really the duration of the season, I've been asking this question, without a prominent running game. Dameon Pierce hasn't been the same. Devin Singletary has stepped up for the Houston Texans. But against this front and against this defense, can he be a guy who gets us at least 80 to 100 rushing yards? And that's the type of questions we have to have. How can we simulate those rushing yards? How can we be productive on the ground to help CJ Stroud? Because I think we look at the last game of the season versus the Indianapolis Colts. It's big time plays. Now, they had no Robert Woods. They had no Noah Brown in that last game versus the Indianapolis Colts, but they're going to get those guys back. And you're looking at how heavy of a load can CJ Stroud carry. Now, I think DeMeco Ryans, he's going to have that defense ready to play. They're going in there. They're facing Joe Flacco. Big time quarterback. We're seeing what he's been able to do. And for him, it's really going to be about not turning over the football. Since Derek Stingley has returned back into the lineup for the Houston Texans, they've been taking away the football at an extremely high rate. You look at Jonathan Grenard. You go to the other side. You look at Will Anderson Jr. You look at Jalen Petrie, some of the guys they have in the front seven. Christian Harris, Blake Cashman. So I think this is a defense that's going to try to be opportunistic, and they're going to have to give CJ Stroud every opportunity to make the big play. You're looking at Nico Collins. He's coming off a game where he had 195 receiving yards. So can he replicate that? At least get us a buck in this game, 100 receiving yards. Those are the types of things you're going to have to be looking at as you face the Cleveland Browns. It won't be an easy matchup. I have a video coming out on the Browns as well, but that's just a very good team. They can run the football with Jerome Ford. They're going to have Amari Cooper back. We've seen David Bell make some plays. Elijah Moore, I believe, will be back into the lineup. And David Njoku is a Pro Bowler this year. So we think about that. We think about the offensive line. They're going to have their Pro Bowl guards. So I'm looking at this matchup, and I think it's one where you want to side with probably the team who's home when you look at the Houston Texans. But when I think about the Cleveland Browns, it's that defense. And I think it gives them a slight edge when I look at this football game. Just my initial thought. I want to dive more into those matchups. Now, getting out of that, we got the Dolphins at Chiefs. Another big time game, which we can talk about in the AFC particularly. And I think what we saw, now the Dolphins actually play the Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they were at Arrowhead Stadium. They'll be at Arrowhead Stadium again in this game. But in that first matchup, there was no Devon Achane. And I think the reason that I'm saying that is because in this game that they lost tonight versus the Buffalo Bills, they had no Raheem Mostert. They had no Jalen Waddle. So a Miami Dolphins team that gets fully healthy. Now, there's probably going to be no Bradley Chubb. I know Jalen Phillips is out for the season. Xavier Howard may be back in this playoff game. Those are the types of things you look at, big time players coming back. But when fully healthy, because I watched this game closely, and something I saw about the Miami Dolphins, they ran the ball extremely well, getting out on the perimeter, getting in between the tackles in the first half. And then in the second half, we saw a Buffalo Bills defense led by Sean McDermott and his guys on the football field that really clamped down. The Miami Dolphins didn't have an answer in the passing game. Now, there were some drop passes, a couple pass interferences, and you look at Tyreek Hill, dropped a pass or two. But I think overall, they didn't have their entire weapon core. to really be explosive offensively. Now you look at a situation where, okay, it's 14-21. We try to force a ball down the football field to Chase Claypool, and it's an interception. If Raheem Mostert is in that football game, if Jalen Waddle is in that football game, can they be more productive in that second half? And then you talk about the defense that they're going to be facing against in the Kansas City Chiefs. They got a lot of dudes on that football team. I'm looking at the front seven: Nick Bolton, Willie Gay Jr. Then I'm looking at Chris Jones. I'm looking at Charles Omenihu, Mike Dana, George Karlaftis. Then you go to the back end, you got L'Jarius Sneed, who probably is going to be an all-pro. Then you got Trent McDuffie, Justin Reed. Some of the guys that you talk about for the Kansas City defense, they are a top 5 defense in football. So I think it's going to be a chess matchup. It's going to be one of those games that come down to the wire. Kansas City Chiefs, no turning over the football, no penalties in crucial moments. Can they be removed from some of the problems and some of the lack of attention to detail that we saw from this team in these last couple of games, really probably for the duration of the season? We talk about the Buffalo Bills game. We talk about some of these other games. If it's not a penalty, it's a drop pass. If it's not a drop pass, it's a forced fumble. It's a strip sack that they're getting on their end. So I'm just looking at that, keeping the football in your hands, letting Patrick Mahomes work, and receivers are going to have to step up. Now, I think they have some really good options. You're looking at probably Rashee Rice is going to have a big game. Travis Kelce is going to have a big game. But a key thing that I looked at for their game against the Cincinnati Bengals, Isaiah Pacheco had 18 carries for 130 yards. I think if you replicate something like that versus this Miami Dolphins team in a defense that's trying to get back healthy, you may have some success in the passing game. So that's a big-time game. I think right now, when you look at it, the Kansas City Chiefs haven't been playing their best football, and really the Miami Dolphins are beat up. So if the Miami Dolphins can come back into this football game, get a little more healthy, I think that they have a really good shot at this one, but you can never count Patrick Mahomes out. Now, they're a week removed off of a pretty solid football game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. They sat their starters in the last game in week 18. So when we get to playoff football, are we going to see a team that's fixing some of their errors, fixing some of that lack of attention to detail? That's what I'll be looking at. Now, getting into our matchups that we have for Sunday, January 14th, we got the first game is the 2 seed versus the 7 seed is the Steelers head into the Buffalo Bills Stadium. Now, once again, I think it's going to be another one of those games. That's probably going to be a nasty game. Buffalo Bills, we're going to have to see what the weather looks like. Will it be raining? Will it be snowing? A lot of different questions and a lot of different things to think about. But overall, I think the win that we saw tonight from the Buffalo Bills versus Miami, it was the epitome of their season, the roller coaster ride with Josh Allen. If you drop my money on the ground and you pick my money up and give it back to me, how much should you be celebrated? Because the whole time it was my possession. When I think about Josh Allen, the way he played in this football game, now I'm not taking it away. The guy had over 400 total yards of offense, but I'll say when you have some of those turnovers, now I don't think the strip sack was entirely on him. Christian Watkins, a defensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins, had an absolutely beautiful rep versus Osiris Torrance. But when I'm looking at things like that, turnover the football, you didn't have to throw that interception to Deshaun Elliott. You didn't have to throw that interception to Eli Apple. So those are situations where I say, okay, I like what you did in that second half. I like how you became Superman. The way he ran and converted that third down in the second half late in the football game, only a handful of quarterbacks can do that. We're looking at probably Lamar, Jalen Hurts, some of those guys, but making that big time play, I think you just want to keep down on the turnovers, lean on James Cook a little more, Leonard Fournette a little more, Ty Johnson probably will be back in the lineup, and just getting the offensive line healthy. Deion Dawkins went out in the second half in this one. So overall, I think this is a very good team. And when I say I like the Baltimore Ravens as my favorite in the AFC, I think the Buffalo Bills are actually my second favorite team in the AFC. This is something I've been vocal about and something I've been talking about, but they're going to have to keep the turnovers down because they're facing a team that can capitalize on some of those things. Now, the biggest question and kind of the overbearing headline about this thing, will TJ Watt be healthy? I mean, that's the big question. And you say, when you look at a matchup, it doesn't come down to one player, one pass rusher. Does he really affect and does he really change the football game like that? And yes, he does. TJ Watt is the best defensive player in football. When I look at it, when I watch the film, when I cut it on, I love Myles Garrett. I love Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, Quentin Williams. I can think about a lot of different names and a lot of different guys. But I mean, even just to get in a conversation, TJ Watt is in the thick of that. And I think he has the effect, and he's that type of player that can impact the game. game. And if you're going to have any chance of upsetting the 2 seed, it will be upon the shoulders of TJ Watt for this defense. So we're going to have to see how healthy is that MCL. Do you have to wear a brace? Do you not have to wear a brace? What would the rehab and the treatment process look like as we head into this football game? You're playing on Sunday, so you got a little bit of time removed from the Saturday football game. So that's what I'm looking at. But outside of that, I think you're looking at some of the guys in the secondary to come back healthy. Minka Fitzpatrick, you had Patrick Peterson playing a little bit of safety. So if you can get him back into the corner position alongside Joey Porter, who's a very good rookie on this team, I'm looking at the front seven, some big time players. Like I said, Larry Ogunjobi, you still got Cam Hayward, big time players overall, Elandon Roberts. So it's going to be important that if Josh Allen does turn over the football, or if the Pittsburgh Steelers can force Josh Allen to turn over the football, that's going to be the key X factor about this game. And I think when you go offensively, they're going to have to run the football. I mean, Jaylen Warren playing like one of the top 15 backs in this league. When we look at the collective unit of how explosive he is in the run game, what he can do as a pass protecting back on third downs, even though he's a bit undersized, and what he can do as a receiver in the screen game, catching the football. So I really like him. And then Najee Harris, a big time back. We've seen them get a little more vertical with the power run schemes, with some of those trap inside zones. So I think that's what they want to get to. That's the brand of football they want to play, obviously. And then when we get into the passing game for the offense, the question is going to be, can Mason Rudolph continue to be as efficient as he's been? You're looking at some of the weapons for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're talking about Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth. So along those lines, even Calvin Austin Jr., who's a return guy but can bring juice to the offense, how can you get those guys involved when you have the co-offensive coordinators and just get into a situation where this has been a better offense since they've gotten into the Mason Rudolph-led offense? Now, I don't think they go back to Kenny Pickett for this playoff game. I can confidently say that I don't think they'll do that. So I'm looking at what he brings. And of course, it's all going to stem from the running game. It's going to stem from the defense. And they have a lot better shot if TJ Watt is in this football game. Now, getting into the next football game, you got the Packers versus the Cowboys. I'll be the first to say it, and I'll be completely honest when I say this. I don't like this matchup for the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys are a very talented team, a very good team, but it's something about those Green Bay Packers. I'm going to be extremely honest. And the more I pay attention to it, I'm looking at what Jordan Love can do. I'm there with Jordan Love. I think he's a top 15, a top 10 quarterback already. We're praising CJ Stroud. We're praising some of these young quarterbacks, and I think Jordan Love deserves that same credit for what he's done for this football team. I mean, he's exceptional when you look at him on film. The statistical numbers, they line up to what you're seeing on the film. It's a great correlation there. And now you got Aaron Jones back. He's ran for over 100 yards in the last 2 games that he's been in the starting lineup. So when you have that, and you also have A.J. Dillon against the Cowboys team who struggles against the run. Now, if they got to put those guys into the box, now they're getting into those man situations. And Dan Quinn, knowing him as a defensive coordinator, he's going to blitz you and run man anyway, whether you can run the football or whether you can't. He's going to trust Deron Bland. He's going to trust Jordan Lewis. He's going to trust Stephon Gilmore, some of those guys in the back end like a Hooker and Curse. So the question is, if we can be physical, attack the line of scrimmage, control the line of scrimmage, if we're Green Bay, now we force these corners, these safeties, they're playing up a little bit more. Now we can get into the play action. We've seen what Dontavian Wicks is doing with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, those guys, Christian Watson. Hopefully he's fully healthy in the playoff game. So I think they have a lot of things going for them. Now, the biggest thing I'll say is obviously the offensive line unit has been playing better, but you're going against Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Osa Odighizuwa, big time guys when we talk about pass rush from the front seven. So you're going to contain that. But I think with Dan Quinn, when he's going to bring those pressure packages, it's going to be a chess match. Like I said, a lot of these games will be a chess match. But overall, I think Jordan Love, he's extremely good against the blitz. He's extremely good against man coverage. So it's one of those matchups that I want to watch. And then I think when I go defensively for the Green Bay Packers against the Cowboys offense, the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb is a monster, and he's a problem. The guy has 1,700 yards on the season, and we're probably going to drop a film breakdown. We're probably going to talk a little bit more about CeeDee Lamb. But just right now, here as we speak, I just don't see an effective way you can stop CeeDee Lamb or slow him down without some of those other guys having big-time games. I mean, Even Tony Pollard, for what he's been able to do, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons on the ground, he's not going to pound you and get over 100 to 120, 150 yards in the rushing game, but he can give you some timely big-time runs. He can get explosive a little bit, and also he adds some things into the passing game. Rico Dotto, he's a good runner as a backup. So if you try to put all your eggs into the basket of stopping CeeDee Lamb, now you look at the possibility of Brandon Cooks getting wide open. You look at the possibility of Jake Ferguson. Dak Prescott is an extremely good quarterback. He will make you pay. And what we know about Joe Barry is when he plays some of these quarters coverages, some of this Vic Fangio-like scheme that he's brought to Green Bay, in today's NFL, you're going to grant the offense easy yards, and especially Dak Prescott. They're going to eat against the inside if they want to get the football to Jake Ferguson, if they want to get the football to Michael Gallup, some of those guys along those lines. So it's going to be a chess match in that regards as to, can Joe Barry be aggressive in the biggest moments? You got some corners you probably want to lean on. Jair Alexander, he's back into the game. You're looking at Rudy Ford, and I think their front seven, when I look at Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, I think they can get after you. Quay Walker's a very good blitzing linebacker, so they have the personnel to try to give you problems. Now, also, the Green Bay Packers are not good against the run as well. So can you mix and match along with Tony Pollard and Rico Dotto, get a combination in there somehow to now exploit some of those problems that Green Bay has against the run? And obviously, it's also credited to what they do in the passing game. When you're so laxed and relaxed in your alignment and coverage, now you're opening easy rush lanes. Your safeties are late to the run game. They can't really effectively get into the box. So like I said, that's something I want to watch. This is one of my big time matchups. I think offensively, this may be a higher scoring game than some of these other ones. That's what I'll say, and I'm gonna just go out here and say it right now. I'm looking at possibly somewhere around 60 combined points. When we look at what the Cowboys can do on offense, what the Packers can do on offense, and the Dallas Cowboys defense, they're extremely good. But when you look at a matchup a little bit, some of the things that they don't do well, the Green Bay Packers do well. So that's what I have about that game. Getting into my next game, though, we have the Los Angeles Rams versus the Detroit Lions. A very, very good game. Big time storylines in this one. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people have been talking about it. For me, though, when I look at this football game, of course, Matthew Stafford, he's playing against his old team. Jared Goff, he's playing against his old team. I haven't really heard much people say that Jared Goff is playing against his old team that he went to a Super Bowl with, but he is. So these are two quarterbacks who you had to trade. Matthew Stafford went and won his Super Bowl. Jared Goff now looking like he has a better team at this point in time. Although, I mean, it's a conversation to be had there about the Los Angeles Rams, the way they've been playing football lately. But it's like, you dropped me. I was your trash. Now I have the opportunity to kick you out of the playoffs. That's all the motivation that Jared Goff needs. And then you think about it, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Pro Bowl snub. Some of these things we have with the Detroit Lions, some of the narratives around the Detroit Lions within doubt. So they have all of the motivation. They're going to play for their guy in Dan Campbell already, and they're going to play a little bit harder for Jared Goff because you don't want it to be, okay, this is why we traded you. They're going to try to make Jared Goff look as good as he possibly can in this football game. And it starts with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then you get to Sam Laporta. Now, I do want to make a note. How healthy will Sam Laporta be if he plays in this football game? I think it's a question we have to have because I was watching the game against the Minnesota Vikings and he went out. I believe it was a lower body injury, possibly a knee. So that's one thing I'll be monitoring, but still. You think about, okay, James Mitchell, Brock Wright. Some of those guys, they're not Sam Laporta, but they're still solid to good tight ends. And then outside of that, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, what can he do? Can he be explosive against this defense? Which I think the Los Angeles Rams have a young secondary, so they're probably going to give up a couple of big plays. Although they have some talent, they're still very young, and sometimes the communication causes lapse. So those are the types of things you want to be paying attention to. I think it's it's kind of a funny front seven when we talk about it. Byron Young, he's been very, very good as a rookie. You look at Kobe Turner, they're going to try to get you. Now you got Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, some of those guys, Jonah Jackson. It's going to be important. This is going to be that interior pass rush matchup. It's going to be a battle in the trenches. I'm not talking about edges, Penei Sewell versus the Los Angeles Rams edge. I'm talking about your interior players versus the interior players of the Los Angeles Rams. Aaron Donald. They're going to try to attack Jared Goff from within. And of course, we know Jared Goff, he's not the most mobile guy. And when you play against those types of quarterbacks, that's how you get them. Tom Brady, he never wanted pressure up the middle because now I can't step up into the pocket. I know I can't scramble out of the pocket. So if I can't evade and step within the pocket, now I'm having some problems. Now I got to speed up my progression, speed up my read. So that's one thing I'll be looking at. It's important that you lean on that running game because I think although the Los Angeles Rams, that's where they're leaning their hard hats on. They have Ernest Jones. They have some of those guys also in the front seven where they can stop the run. But for the Detroit Lions, I think when you have an elite running game, even if you go against a good run defense, you want to assert your dominance early. That's what this game is going to be dependent upon. Now, Matthew Stafford, don't turn over the football. We know this is a guy in certain moments that can turn over the football, get into a gunslinger mentality. And then if you have Jahmyr Gibbs, now he's been hot lately. You have David Montgomery, he's been hot as well. Lean on those two guys. Now you get into the play action. Get those weapons that I aforementioned involved. And like I said, for Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford both, I think you don't want to throw those interceptions. I mean, in a game like this, where you look at two extremely hot offenses, I worry that the team who does turn over the football, the team who does get the strip sacks, who does throw the interceptions, the fumbles, you're going against an offense. If you turn over the football, Detroit can capitalize on you extremely quick with Ben Johnson. If you turn over the football, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, who is arguably the offensive rookie of the year. Now, this is not the conversation for that. CJ Stroud or Puka Nacua, not the conversation here, but you think about that matchup. You think about what they can do offensively. Cooper Kupp is going to be back healthy. You think about Tyler Higbee, some of the guys they have there offensively. So it's a big time unit, and they can run the heck out of the football. Now, the Detroit Lions, they stopped the run at an extremely high level. What do they not do at an extremely high level? Stop the pass. You think about the Detroit Lions, they can pass the ball at an extremely high level. The Los Angeles Rams, they struggle in pass coverage at times. So those are the types of things I'll say. And Kyron Williams, he's going to be the X factor. Can he get 100 yards? Can he get 120, even 150? We've saw those big-time explosive games from scrimmage or from the rushing attack. He can catch the football out of the backfield. He's a very good player and an underrated player when we talk about running backs in this league. So that's what I think about this game. I think overall right now, I'd have to go with the Lions in this scenario, I believe. But if the Los Angeles Rams make it a game, their offense, this is an elite offense. I say elite. I don't want to say it's a good offense. This is an elite offense, and they can and will give you problems. So the defenses have to come to play. They're going to have those hard hats on. They're going to have to, in the secondary, communicate at a higher level than they've ever communicated at. If you want to talk about Super Bowl, some of those big-time playoff aspirations, it starts here. This is one of the most dangerous teams you'll find in the NFC playoffs. Now, getting into the next match, we have our last game, and that's the Eagles going into Tampa Bay as they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won the NFC South. Really, I think with this matchup, it starts with me for some of the things we saw with the Philadelphia Eagles. Where do you start? And I think that's the real question. I dropped a video specifically talking about them, about 10 to 12 minutes, some of the problems I see with this football team, and I felt offensively they were getting a little better. Now, how much stock do we put into this Week 18 game versus the New York Giants? I think Jalen Hurts didn't play the full game, but he played a lot of snaps in this football game. Something you just have to say is this offense can't get stagnant. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the worst passing defense in the NFL. I looked at the stats before I even got into this. They're ranked number 32. So if you can now also the reason I say that is because they stopped the run extremely well. Levante David, Devin White, Vita Vea up the middle. Some of those guys, Kalijah Kancey. I think about that a little bit. And if you can pass the football and lighten up that box, force those guys to respect the pass, with an elite alpha guy in A.J. Brown, with an elite alpha guy in Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert at that tight end position, even Quez Watkins and Julio Jones. If you can lighten up that box, now you lean and try to make it a DeAndre Swift game, a Kenneth Gainwell type game. Let Jalen Hurts get into some of those design runs. I think that is along the lines of what you want to do in this football game, because if you don't, you're looking at an offense, and your defense has been struggling if you're Philadelphia. Our linebackers aren't feeling the run. They're not disciplined. They're not really comfortable enough in pass coverage. We've seen them struggle in that aspect as well. I mean, even in the secondary, we talk about personnel. Will Darius Slay be back? That's another question. But you look at some of the safeties, Kevin Byard, Reed Blankenship, I think good players overall, but as a unit, they haven't been communicating well and they haven't been playing good football. So if you don't play good football and if your offense becomes stagnant, even with all of the talent that they have, and it seems like, okay, we think about the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the winner of the NFC South. It shouldn't be this much of a conversation, hypothetically, figuratively, but it is, because you look at how the Philadelphia Eagles have been playing, and I think you go to Dave Canales, what they have cooking in Tampa Bay. You think about Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, what they have, Cade Otton, Rachaad White in the backfield. So those are some of the guys I look at, and then Baker Mayfield, he's going to have to bring his A game, because when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers matched up against the Philadelphia Eagles in their first matchup, it was a game where Baker Mayfield didn't play his best football. I think we saw the Philadelphia Eagles assert their dominance, even though they still weren't playing their best football at the time of that matchup. But you have film on this team, and that goes for both teams. Philly has film on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has film on Philly because they've played each other already. It's just, I think Dave Canales, he has a great balance and a good ratio when he runs the football, and then he gets into the passing game with the play action, what they like to do there. They're going to take their shots. And the question is, can Mike Evans get you one deep, one touchdown? That's all we need out of him. Can he get one touchdown, 50, 60, 40 yards? Can he get that? Can Chris Godwin get behind the defense, 30 to 40 yards? Can those guys get into a situation where all we need is that one big play? Can we run a screen pass against an aggressive defense? Now we got Rachaad White. He's getting up the football field into the end zone. This is a team who's not scared. They're not going to dink and dunk the football. They're going to push the football down the football field. And Baker Mayfield, this is a guy who is ultra aggressive. And if he gets comfortable, if he gets his attitude going a little bit, if he gets his moxie running in his game, I think Philadelphia may be looking at some problems. I wouldn't pick Tampa Bay to win this game. I'm going with Philadelphia in just my initial look. I got to watch some more film, talk about it a little more as we head into the actual week and get to Monday. That's a long time from now. But right now, we'll go with Philadelphia. However, you're looking at Tampa Bay. And like I said, this is a team that can cause you some problems because of what they do through the air, what they do with Dave Canales, a very good offensive coordinator. I'm expecting, and maybe I'm a fool for this, maybe this may age horribly, but I'm expecting the Philadelphia Eagles under the leadership, and I think we say under the leadership, they've been saying the right things all season. I mean, A.J. Brown sticking up for Nick Sirianni, all of the things we've heard, they've been saying what they're supposed to say. They've been saying what you're supposed to hear from some of the coaches, from some of the players. Nick Sirianni, we have to fix things fast. A.J. Brown, it's not on him. We're freelancing on some of these routes. However, you've been saying this. You've been saying we got to get on track. We have to be better, and we haven't seen it. I'm challenging the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm banking on the Philadelphia Eagles to come out here versus Tampa Bay and actually play a solid football game offensively and defensively. You're going to want to have to get after Baker Mayfield, because if you don't, you're going to be in for problems. And that's going to wrap it up for today's video. These are my initial playoff thoughts and some of the things I look at as I preview these football games. I want to know down below in the comments, who do you have winning these football games? What do you think about these football games? What are the key matchups that you're paying attention to? Is it schematically? Is it a big time headline that we're talking about? Is it something that we should be talking about that maybe I didn't touch on in this video? We're going to be in the film room. We're going to be analyzing these games. We're going to drop videos specifically about some of these games, just the 2-2 matchup. And I think by the time we get into this weekend, by the time we get into Super Wildcard weekend and Monday, we're going to have a lot of football to talk about and a lot of football to watch. Thank you for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. That's going to do it for today. And now,